Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. And this guy here, Lydia. Are you going to say hi? Are you going to say hi? Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome to the 4 people watching. Super appreciate it. Happy Monday afternoon, evening. I know, it's an odd time of the day or week for me to be doing a live stream. So please, 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 for the 2 people who are in the sandbox, let me know if you can see and hear me, because I'm doing this on an odd day and my brain has been really off lately, just ADHD kind of explode. So far we have Rusty and Real John Litham in the sandbox. Super appreciate it. Welcome. And Rusty is asking if, or saying that there's someone interested in having me on her channel. The best way to reach out to me is email leftofthebox@gmail.com. Super easy. I don't get inundated, so I'll see it if it doesn't go to spam, at least. Okay, so got confirmation that I am seen and heard. Today, or tonight, today, I feel like it's today because it's still so bright out. But it's more like this evening. I don't know. To me, evening starts at 6 p.m. So it's still afternoon, late afternoon. Anyway, talking about, a difficult topic, sexual assault type stuff. And I didn't want to cover it yesterday during my regular news live stream because, again, it's a sensitive subject. So there might be some people who just don't want to tune in for it, which I totally understand. Also, there are some very interesting videos that I want to show at the end. One is from the Trevor Noah channel. And I really, really like the video. But I get the really strong sense it's going to get copyrighted on me. So when we get to it, it's the last thing on the docket. When we get to it, I will speed it up and put an image over it to see if that will bypass the copywriters, so that you can see what I saw, or at least hear it. Watching it isn't so important as hearing it. So yeah, it's not a terribly long docket, but there are some videos in it and whatnot, so it'll take a bit of time, and then afterwards just kind of unwind. I don't know, talk about something. If I get $1 bazillion in the sandbox for super chats, I can show that sneak peek of the TYT essay. But again, I don't want to be on terribly late. I was on later than I wanted to yesterday because, again, I'm trying to start a routine, getting up earlier, working out, doing that sort of thing. So I do want to get to bed earlier, and I still want to go for a walk and have dinner, and there's still a lot of unwinding I need to do after a live stream, and especially one on a topic like this is difficult. So just kind of waiting for people to trickle in. Looks like we're up to 5 viewers, one of them being me, because I have my tab open up to my live stream on YouTube as well. So I can always go there and double check and make sure everything is okay. All right, gotta plug in the headphones. I was hoping to do a lot more painting today on my little pride flags, but there's this thing that happens when I get so focused on doing the pride flags and things of that sort, like the painting. I put off doing things like dishes and laundry. So that is what I was working on primarily today, was getting those things done. And luckily they are. And I always feel better when they're done. Like the place just feels nicer when there's not a big mountain of laundry and dishes all over the counter. So it's nice to have that done. And then I'm debating if I go get a slice of pizza afterwards for dinner or if I have more leftovers. I don't know. It's a tough call. It is a tough call. Anyway, but let me know how you're doing in the SandBox. And I don't know. We'll give it a few more minutes, see if people start trickling in. I think the Vanguard might still be live, so then that's always, got a lot of crossover audience with them. So it could be a little bit more difficult getting people over until they're done. And I think they had a special guest on today. I don't, some sort of, I think they're running for office in some way or whatever. Nobody's running for office in my area right now because there are no elections right now. But, yeah, I'll see if I can, I want to do more interviews. I do like doing interviews. And I'm actually going to see about reaching out to Catherine Fife. She's the NDP MPP that is trying to pass Lydia's law. And I think it'd be very nice to have her on to actually talk to her about that in person. Also, just some other stuff with the Doug Ford government and whatnot. And I've reached out to Mark Allen Derry again. He's an infectious disease expert. I want to talk to him about the Hunta virus that's on the cruise ship and get his thoughts on it. How should we prepare? Should we be prepared? How does it transmit and all that sort of stuff? And also why cruise ships tend to be hot spots when it comes to disease outbreaks, and just his thoughts on that. So I just emailed him today, and he doesn't check his emails every day. So, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully. John saying, long work day, and I'm ready for it to be over. I know the feeling. Hello, True Democratic North. I'm leaning towards the pizza. Go for a walk, get a pizza at the end of it. But yeah, let's see. How are we for viewers? Still saying that. I don't know. Sometimes the refreshing doesn't happen all that great, so I'm going to refresh manually. The internet has been weirdly slow lately. And don't forget, everyone, move to live chat as opposed to top chat so that you can see all of the chat. I wish I could just default it to live chat. But yeah. I was really hoping to get more painting done today. I got a little bit done, just waiting for it to dry. And I got super frustrated that I have a bottle of glue glitter that I wanted to use, and I can't find it. Specific bottle of glue glitter that I wanted to use, and I can't find it, and it's driving me absolutely insane. So I'll look for some more. I found another one that's red because I needed like red glue glitter, so it's fine, but I wanted the other one. Oh, I think Lanier is eating something he's not supposed to. Lanier, stay over here, okay? Come on. Come on. Just come on up. Everyone wants to see your adorable face. Come on. This cat. Rusty is asking, can you paint in the event? Maybe attacked interest in the event? I have no idea what that means, Rusty. Sorry. But yeah, I was hoping to get more done. I still got a fair bit done. So it's really going to be a toss-up. Do I do more painting after this, or do I go for my walk? I want to go for my walk so that I can dream about my book. Still can't wait to get back to it. I'm so looking forward to getting back to it. uh, attract interest by you painting in Oh, okay. I don't know. Hello, Big Jerry. Welcome to the SandBox. I'm not set up to just do painting here on the desk. And I don't have a camera that would then be focused on it. And I don't think OBS can have two camera sources at the same time. So even if I got a second webcam, I don't know if I could set both of them up. But I do want to get a second webcam for other things like the portable studio and whatnot. So I don't have to keep on using this one in case something happens to this. It's always good to have backup. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe I can get it set up someday. It's really bugging me not knowing where that bottle of glue glitter is. I wasn't impressed with it when I used it the first time, but then I'm thinking for what I'm using it for now, it's really good. Hello, Silas. Sorry, Rusty is saying, I mean paint in the Pride Parade show. I still don't know 100% if I'm going to be in the Pride Festival. Fingers crossed I am. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me to confirm. I have some other vendor markets that I'm going to, but they're not necessarily queer focused, so my art doesn't necessarily sell well there, but you never know. You never know. Okay, well, why don't we just kind of get into the subject of the evening, night, day, Monday, live stream. Let's get into the subject of the live stream. Like I said, it's a very difficult subject, talking about sexual assault. And some stories about that, and Catherine Fife trying to pass Lydia's law and whatnot. But it's important. It's important to cover these sorts of things because there's all this talk about like, oh, women have equal rights. Women are just on par with men these days. And it's like, not really. No. And there's still so much difficulty around people believing victims. Believing when somebody says, I was assaulted. And I have some good, again, some of the things that I have at the end are just kind of good pushback towards that. And I guess I'm still kind of feeling it after that acquittal of that doctor. 48 women went to court to speak out to what he did to them. And the judge said, yeah, all 48 of you, not reliable. What more can we do? You know, because we had the Me Too. There was some pushback about it afterwards. But now it feels like that never happened. Like there was no shift in culture. There was no changing how society actually functioned when it came to these sorts of issues. No education was done. It was like a trend. It was a trend during a period of time, and now that trend is over to have the whole believe women because like that's a trend as opposed to an actual way that we should be. And just so people know, like when I'm talking about women, I do mean like it's women broadly, but also, yes, I'm well aware that men are sexually assaulted, non-binary people, trans folks in particular are usually victims. And so I do mean like all victims when I'm talking about women. It's just for a lot of what I'm looking at right now, women are the victims in it. But, you know, SA, sexual assault, is rampant, absolutely rampant. And there hasn't been a reckoning with it. You still have monsters running the White House that are responsible for a lot of it. The Epstein stuff. So many victims in those files. No one has gone to court. No one has been charged. There were pictures and videos in those files. Still, no one is charged. Names, lots and lots of names. No one is charged. Like, when men can act with impunity, what is stopping them? The stories that I'm covering, Rusty, are in Canada. Hello, reference frame. Don't forget the expert witness saying it was not normal medical procedure. The judge didn't believe her too. Yeah, there was a medical professional in the same field as the doctor saying, yeah, this isn't what you would. You don't do vaginal exams for this sort of thing. And even if, just hypothetically, the judge was like, well, I do believe the male doctor that these exams were necessary, there's still this thing about the doctor being ungloved during it. Because again, there's so many things wrong with it. And the types of what the doctor did to these women. It's not the first case like this. It's not going to be the last case like this. Because there hasn't been enough pushback in society. Men like him don't feel afraid to act out on this. Men like him don't feel like there'll be repercussions or consequences. So, yeah, lots to talk about. Rusty saying it reminds me of that Olympic doctor in the USA. Yeah, very much so. So let's see. So we're going to start talking again about men. And this time I am talking like, yes, of course I know that some women are assaulters, trans and non-binary people are assaulters, but the overwhelming majority of people who commit sexual assault are cis men. Like, there's not a close second to that. The far vast overwhelming majority of people who do this are cis men, and they attack people of all genders. And that is something that is ingrained in society, the patriarchy, the misogyny. There's ties into capitalism, there's ties into colonialism, there's ties into white supremacy that condition a lot of what's going on. But let's just say some of their excuses of like, oh, well, men want to hunt, or men are biologically driven to do this sort of thing. That's all bullshit. You know, we evolved. We're humans with intelligence, capable of thinking for ourselves and rationalizing thoughts and feelings and choosing how we act out on things. To say that there's some sort of biological impulse, yeah, no, fuck off. Like, it's just, no, we have evolved. And the way some men will try to put the blame on something exterior to them as opposed to something interior, it's disgusting. So, let's get into it then. Let's go here. Okay, got the right screen up. So this is from CTV News. Quite often, men who are in power, it doesn't matter what kind of power, tend to abuse that power. All this talk over and over again about men going into women's washrooms. Oh no. That's why trans women can't go into women's washroom, because of cis men who would go into women's washrooms. And it's like, they don't have to go that far. You know, men will find any position of power that they could get into if they're the type to want to act out on this type of thing. They don't need to put on a dress and say that they're a trans woman in order to gain access to the women's washroom. No, they get jobs in law enforcement. A lot of them do. And then when they do that, they often get protected by their buddies. And so this is in Vancouver. Hot little senorita in cell. BC RCMP officer disciplined for sharing sexualized photos of female prisoner. Oh, he was disciplined, you say? So he got fired because that was definitely crossing a line and inappropriate. So he was fired, right? Right? No. A male BC RCMP officer who took sexualized photo of an unwitting female prisoner and sent it to a colleague using a work-issued cell phone committed professional misconduct, but will not be fired or forced to resign. No. He can just create, I wouldn't say it's revenge porn, but it's unconsensual porn of a woman using his authority, his position of authority to do so, then using law enforcement equipment to share it with others. That's not a fireable offense? How is that not a fireable offense? Like, that is just crossing the line on trust, on authority, on protecting people in their custody, all of that sort of stuff. To target a woman who's in a vulnerable position, who doesn't have any status because, you know, the status of the officer and stuff, absolutely disgusting. So Constable Samuel Kulik admitted to 1 count of discreditable conduct and 1 count of misuse of government-issued property in connection with a 2021 incident in Richmond Detachment, according to a recently published Conduct Board decision. You took a sexualized photo of a prisoner to whom you owed a duty to care. You sent the photo to another constable. At no time did the woman consent to her photo being taken. The conduct decision said, summarizing the first count of misconduct, Kulik admitted to. You failed to use government-issued property correctly by taking sexualized photos with your RCMP cell phone and transmitting the photo with your RCMP cell phone. That's interesting way to phrase it. You failed to use government-issued property correctly? Like, that just sounds like, you know, somebody who was using the phone in the bathtub and accidentally, you know, slipped in and got waterlogged. You know, that would be, you failed to use it correctly because you were using it incorrectly. You did something to it, like you thought, do you know what? I'm going to pry it open to replace the battery. That would be using the property incorrectly. This person used government-issued property to commit a crime. If this had just been some random person out in the public, and let's say there was a woman passed out on a bench, and he decided to take a sexualized photo of her while she was passed out or whatever and share it with his buddies, that is a crime. You know, the upskirting photos, that's a crime. So this person didn't simply fail to use government-issued property correctly. He used it to commit a crime. The decision continued, summarizing the second. The woman whose identity is subject to a publication ban was arrested on an outstanding warrant when Kulik was on duty. She had recently had surgery on her buttocks. requested loose-fitting clothing according to the decision. Kulik entered the cell's block's video monitoring room in the evening of November 21st, 2021, and snapped a photo of the screen showing the woman in her cell. She had her back to the camera with her buttocks partially visible, the decision said. You made a comment that you wished you could be present the next day to release her from her cell so you could see her walk. After taking the photo, Kulik admitted he sent it to another constable using WhatsApp along with a message. The message read, "Haha, hot little senorita in cell tonight, straight from Mexico." According to the decision, which also said the colleague responded with a nice ha ha ha. The civilian jail guard reported Kulik's actions to his supervisor, who immediately addressed the issue by confiscating Kulik's phone and filling out an incident report. The decision noted Kulik was cooperative and forthcoming, admitting to what he had done and showing his supervisory the photo and message. A criminal investigation was launched, but the decision said it concluded without charges being approved because the elements of the offense of voyeurism could not be made out of the existing information. He had photographic evidence of what he did. Kulik was suspended with pay, and the disciplinary proceeding wrapped up more than 4 years later on December 19th, 2025. So he basically got a paid vacation. He violated this woman's privacy, and he got a paid vacation. So significant conduct measures. Representatives of the RCMP's Conduct Authority asked the board to dismiss Kulik or order him to resign. As an employer, the RCMP must maintain integrity and discipline in the workplace. The woman was a vulnerable person by virtue of her status as a prisoner under the RCMP's care. She had a reasonable expectation that she would be treated with courtesy and respect, and that her rights would be upheld by her custodians. The subject member failed in his duty of care owed to her, and his actions breached the prisoner's privacy rights, the decision said. In order to maintain integrity and good conduct in the workplace, the RCMP must deal harshly with any member whose misconduct seriously undermines that responsibility. The RCMP has done so by taking steps to initiate the conduct hearing process by requesting that I dismiss the subject member or direct him to resign. The woman was never informed about what happened and was likely unaware of the disciplinary proceedings. Might have been nice to let her know that some officer took a picture of her and shared it. Might have been good to have that witness on stand to give that emotional impact of how that affected her. Just not going to mention that. Keep her in the dark about it. That she wasn't safe with these men. So I am unable to ascertain her feelings relative to the subject member's actions, nor can I determine how they affected her, Kevin Harrison wrote in the board's decision. Well, maybe you should have asked. That could have been a valuable thing to do. Actually, take her into consideration. Take her feelings into consideration. Take her autonomy into consideration. You could have asked. Informed her. Brought her to the proceedings. Asked what she thought of it. As opposed to acting like she was a mannequin or something. Like a non-person capable of speaking for herself. She had a right to privacy, diminished by her incarceration, which the subject member violated. The subject member was expected to uphold her rights and failed to do so. I expect that she would not be pleased to know what had taken place. You don't say. Again, you don't have to speculate on this. You could have asked. You could have informed her. The decision described Kulik's misconduct as serious and noted his behavior fell markedly short of standards expected of a police officer. It also noted the broader impact of individual cases. I'm just thinking, like, has she been informed since? Because they mentioned that she had just received surgery on her buttocks and that she wanted loose-fitting clothing. They mentioned the date that it happened. She could have read that news article to find out years later that this had happened. Like, she could be reading this right now to discover what had happened to her and that she had no say in it. That they didn't approach her, that her thoughts and consideration weren't taken, weren't valid to them. Could you imagine finding out this way, that your privacy was violated by reading a news article and putting two and two together? The decisions described Kulik's misconduct as serious and noted his behavior fell markedly short of standards expected of a police officer. It also noted the broader impact of individual cases. Public confidence in the RCMP has been dramatically eroded over the past decade due to member misconduct, the decision said. This doesn't help. Yeah, this ruling doesn't improve my confidence in the RCMP. It does the exact opposite. Each successive case of misconduct adjudicated and established by a conduct board contributes to that loss of public confidence. Yes. Kulik's unblemished record and his demonstration of remorse were considered mitigating, leading the board to deem the misconduct was likely a momentary lapse in judgment and unlikely to recur. Momentary lapse in judgment? To actively take out your cell phone, take a picture, send it to a buddy with a racist message, racist sexualized message. That's a momentary lapse in judgment? He knew from the moment that thought entered his mind as to what he wanted to do that it was wrong. He knew that. This isn't a momentary lapse in judgment. He knew it was wrong. Oh, but he showed remorse. So you care about his feelings, but you don't care about her feelings. You care that he's like, well, shucks darn, I did bad. I own it. And then he doesn't get punished or anything of that sort. And they take his remorse more into consideration than the violation this woman might have felt. His actions seriously tarnished the RCMP's image. Not... You can't tarnish something that's that shit covered to begin with. I'm just saying. And contribute to the loss of public confidence and respect for the RCMP and police in general. These factors speak to the need to impose significant conduct measures, but not necessarily loss of employment, the decision said. No, absolutely, he should have been fired. The consequences imposed were a financial penalty equivalent to 40 days' pay and a prohibition on applying for promotion for a period of 2 years. Whew. Wow. That would discourage others from violating people's consent, violating their privacy. Yeah. That's, But, you know, it's not just police officers. It's men, and again, predominantly cis men, taking advantage of any position they can get to do these things. So here we have a 23-year-old pastor and director of a youth camp group is facing sexual assault charges. And this is from Global News in Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police say a pastor has been arrested after a teenage camp counselor reported they were being sexually assaulted. Officers say between last August and March, an adult pastor who directed a youth camp group gained trust of a counselor and started a sexual relationship. A 23-year-old man is charged with sexual assault, sexual exploitation, luring, and distributing sexually explicit material. Constable Claude Chansey says he was released under a number of conditions.
Is there a single organization out there that hasn't been ravished by some sort of sexual assault, misconduct, cover-up thing? Like anything, because it happens in sports teams, it happens with churches, it happens with the police, it happens with teachers, it happens with bosses, CEOs, in the media, in film and TV, in sports, definitely sports. Like, is there any place that hasn't had this happen? The level of it being ingrained in our society, of how systemic it is, that it can occur everywhere. And still, women are not believed. They're not considered. Their feelings aren't taken into consideration. They're not treated like autonomous human beings. When it's so rampant in our society. I think I have these out of order. These two? Yeah. So we'll go here first. So this is from CBC News. Because also journalists, female journalists, female politicians, women who put their face out there in the public also face a lot of harassment, sexual harassment, sexual violence for simply trying to do their jobs. And quite often what the companies they're involved with will say, well, it's on you to maybe pull back from your job, to not be so public, to maybe don't speak out. We're not going to protect you. It's on you to make sure you're not a target. We're going to hear a familiar name in here because I cover a lot of Rachel Gilmore's clips in my live streams. And so she's the journalist that they're talking about in this article. So from CBC News, online harassment against female journalists is a growing problem, reports suggest. 22% of female journalists in new survey reported online violence to police. Rachel Gilmore says she feels like she's creating a paper trail for her own inevitable murder. Gilmore, 31, an independent journalist in Montreal, has been the target of what she describes as aggressive and rampant online harassment and violence for years. It escalated when Gilmore, who previously worked for CTV and Global News, started reporting on online extremists. Last year, when her name was listed on a right-wing website claiming to expose people celebrating the murder of American activist Charlie Kirk, she says the threats just amplified. On social media, she documented the countless death threats, violent rape threats, and sexual deepfakes she received. She's spoken publicly about it the time the man posted a video about her when he's waving a knife, and about photos people post to share her exact location. She's described the time two men she unmasked in a story about active clubs found and approached her at a small music venue. We can watch this video. I've shown it on my channel before, but for people who might not be familiar with it, this is her talking about it.
I'm a Canadian journalist, and last night, two white nationalists who I reported on came to intimidate me on a private night out. This is the photo I took of them. I've got two more while they were doing this. I was at a small local music venue. I was watching my boyfriend play music with some friends. But I'll be honest, I was a little nervous that something like this would happen because I had just published a huge expose unmasking where these guys were training and a member of their group. The gym had no idea this was happening, and they were horrified because they said that having a welcoming community is very important to them. So as a result of my reporting, they severed ties with the coach that had been facilitating these after-hours training sessions. That's the coach in the background there, showing up to intimidate me. And this is his little friend. And as you can see, he's not hiding shit. That's a Totenkopf, which is a Nazi-era symbol. I have dealt with a lot of harassment over the years as a result of my reporting on the far right. But this was definitely one of the biggest investigations I've done and one that's had the most immediate impact. So I was actually quite nervous about the idea of going out. Frankly, I don't go out that much because of shit like this. I genuinely love what I do. I think it's really important, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there isn't a cost. Last night, in between sets, I had just been speaking with a friend and I turned around and I saw these two guys standing there. They were staring at me. And this is where I was maybe a little stupid, but I mean, he was shorter than me. So I walked right up and I said, "Can I help you with something?" I also asked him if they had paid cover. They hadn't. Anyway, we went back and forth a little bit. He was questioning me about when my next piece is coming out. And then he name dropped my old gym and said, "Yeah, maybe we'll drop by sometime." Luckily, I stopped going there. Their goal was very clearly to intimidate me. They found where I was spending my night off with friends. They knew where I worked out and they wanted me to know it. All because I did reporting exposing them for the things that they choose to say and do. If you don't want to be exposed as a Nazi, don't be a Nazi. The venue owner was cool as hell and told me I could drink for free for the rest of the night, but I just had one margarita and then went to the police station to report everything that happened. I was up until about 4 a.m. last night, so I'm really tired today. But I thought it was really important to get dressed and tell you guys about this, because these guys are trying to intimidate a journalist for reporting on them and exposing them as white nationalists. That is an attack on press freedom and on our democracy. And even if they did look like massive losers while doing it, it is still genuinely unsettling. These guys are emboldened, and we all need to be aware of that. I'm really grateful for my friends, for everyone who helped me last night. Community really is everything. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, there's been story after story of journalists and politicians needing to get security. And quite often, this is an expense the victim of this harassment has to deal with. It's not covered by their employer or whatnot. And even journalists, when they're on the job, there used to be this fad of men approaching women who are doing a live shot for news and harassing her, saying sexually explicit things to her as she's doing her job. Not that it's ever appropriate, but it's meant to humiliate her to her audience, to her employer, to anyone who's watching the news. And there's never really been consequences for this sort of thing. You know, and when I mean consequences, I mean the societal pressure for them to stop. Like this type of behavior shouldn't be acceptable in society. Instead, we have men covering for men or men dismissing men, like trying to say it's not a big deal over and over again, as opposed to taking it seriously. But again, it's men's feelings that are more protected than the actual safety of women. So this is a quote from Rachel. She says, "I went to the police so many times. I sent them so much documentation, so many threats over the years," Gilmore told CBC News. "I started to feel like I was just giving them a paper trail for my inevitable murder, and that when I'm murdered, that they'll at least have some leads they can follow." A new UN Women report released Thursday puts numbers to what many female journalists such as Gilmore already know. Online violence against women in the media is growing, becoming increasingly sophisticated and affecting female journalists both professionally and personally. More than 1/5, 22% of female journalists and media workers surveyed for the report said they reported incidents of online violence to the police, a rate that doubled since 2020. It doesn't help when you have somebody who was found liable of sexual assault in the most powerful position in the world. kind of emboldens other horrible people to act out. And 25% reported they've been diagnosed or treated for anxiety and or depression associated with what they experienced. Again, that's an expense that the victim has to pay for. And we're actually going to be talking a bit more about that later on. The report defines online violence as any act that is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified by the use of information communication technologies or other digital tools which result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological, social, political, or economic harm. Nearly half of female journalists and media workers say they self-censor on social media due to online violence, an increase from 30% in 2020, and 22% said they self-censor at work. The global survey was conducted in 2025 across 119 countries, and the report was based on the responses from 641 women. The findings are not generalizable to the public due to the methodology used. A growing problem in Canada. While this report is new, the problem of online harassment isn't. Numerous reports have documented the degree of hate and harassment, particularly against female journalists and journalists of color, including in Canada. For instance, Canada currently sits at 20th place out of 180 countries in the 2026 Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index, already having dropped 7 spots in 2025 to 21st place. The ranking notes that in Canada, online harassment poses a threat, especially to female and minority journalists. In 2022, the International Center for Journalists published a global study in which nearly 3/4 of the survey respondents identifying as women said they had experienced online violence in the course of their work. The same year, the Canadian Association of Journalists and Canadian Journalism Foundation published a report on online hate against journalists of color and noted that it's led to some leaving the profession entirely. I understand why they do these studies to get stats, but I think most people who are plugged into the online environment, we know there's been an increase. We know it's getting worse. We know a lot of women are being targeted for being vocal, for being prominent, for speaking out, for being strong, for doing their job. We know this. The studies just kind of validate the evidence that is already out there, what we already see and feel. So this is the Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index here. And it just goes over rank 21 for Canada. Russia is ranked 171. Where is... Just wondering. There we go. Israel is only ranked 120 at that. Let's see, where was it? I had it there for a second. Oh, maybe if I... Nope, I can't zoom in. Just curious, where was it? I had it up on screen. There we go. I'm surprised that it's ranked 156 in they don't even say Gaza, they say Palestine. Russia ranks worse than Palestine, Gaza, where a lot of the journalists are being slaughtered. I don't know. China is ranked 178. I'm trying to figure out like who's the worst. Into all these red countries because they said it was out of 180? Yeah, 180 countries. Well, so far I have China at 178. I'll put the link into the SandBox so people can look at this too if you want. Actually, I'm just clicking on the report. No, that doesn't really help. Anyway, so another 2022 report from the Canadian Journalism Forum on Violence and Trauma found that more than half of all media workers surveyed were targets of harassment, but that women encountered harassment and violence at every turn. Brent Jolly, a national president of Canadian Association of Journalists, CAJ, says we need more documentation like the UN report because it shows the scope of the problem and that online violence and harassment is part of a pattern meant to push people out of the public sphere. I don't know any woman in Canada, in journalism or in public service, who is not regularly harassed, Jolie told CBC News. Do I count in this category? Because I'm blessedly not. More and more Canadian newsrooms are offering supports to their employees like safety plans and buddy systems, while some workplace unions are pushing for remedies in their collective agreements, Jolie said, but he added that doesn't help the growing proportion of freelance and independent journalists working across the country. Also, a lot of the focus, rightly, protect the woman, but let's start dealing with the men. Let's start dealing with the driving factors in this increase of their behavior. This is a societal problem, and it's not going to be fixed by, putting women in boxes to keep them safe. Something has to be done on a far broader scale. So at the same time, he said a change needs to happen at the public policy level and in law enforcement to investigate when harassment happens via telecommunications. I know that takes time, but at what cost and what damage are we prepared to sort of sit on our hands? I don't know what this video terminology in popular groups play. So I just tell them it's a part of it. Gilmore, who now runs her own media company called Bubble Pop, says it's her experience that employers and authorities often tell journalists to scale back their presence on social media when they are harassed online. And that's a huge problem, she says, because many journalists need to be present online to do their job. That's not to mention how most targets of online violence are women and people of color. So in silencing them, we lose those critical and necessary perspectives in journalism, she added. The response shouldn't be to sort of doubly punish victims who are already victimized by the harassment in the first place by forcing them to make themselves smaller. Gilmore says she knows people who attack her online will use this story to further taunt her and to validate their beliefs that they haven't done anything wrong because the police haven't acted. It's not going to stop me, she said, but she added the lack of institutional protections is demoralizing. How do I ethically turn around and tell other young women to get into this business, she said. I just tell them it's a part of it and you have to know what you're getting into and be clear-eyed about it. Okay. So next we're going to be getting into Catherine Fife and her fight for Lydia's Law. But before we do that, I am going to check in on the SandBox. See. Silla's saying he should be fired and in a cell, in my opinion. Yeah. True Democratic North, teachers are not held accountable due to aging population. Hello, 56 Nick Rich. Hello, Glitchmaster. Saying the answer to your question is no, unless we have some sort of social system divorced from patriarchy. Hello, Isidore. It's a well-practiced policy to sweep stuff under the rugs of Canada. I remember a huge area rug in the lodge as a kid in Northern Ontario. Lots swept under that rug. Let's see. Hello, the Wild West. Hello, Jet. I've been starting more at 5 p.m. as of late because I want to wrap up earlier in the evening so I can get to bed earlier and, do a schedule. Try to get myself on a routine. It's helping because I have a lot of work to do, so yeah. Oh, North Korea. I didn't hover over North Korea. Let's see. North Korea is 179. Because Silas is saying it looks like Eritrea, North Korea, and China round up the bottom three for what it's worth. So North Korea is 79. China is 178. Let's see. Yeah, Eritrea is 180. Jet, Sandy used to start at 3 where I lived. I'm just confused. Is all. Okay, let's get back to it. Talking about Catherine Fife and her fight for Lydia's Law. So this is from CTV News. Waterloo MPP reintroduces bill that calls for more transparency in Ontario sexual assault cases. I don't know if I wanted to watch the video for this because we have videos in the upcoming tabs. Well, we can start watching the video, and if it's not a video I was planning on watching, I'll stop it.
Good evening. We begin with another call for more accountability and transparency in sexual assault cases in Ontario. Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife has reintroduced a bill calling for changes to the system.
Now, Doug Ford, he says that he wants a hard stance on crime and blah, 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 blah. So I'm sure he's completely on board with passing this NDP law.
Just days after the acquittal of former neurologist Jeffrey Slocum, who was accused of sexually assaulting female patients. CTV's Krista Simpson joins us now with the details tonight. Krista.
Tony, the bill is called Lydia's Law, named after a woman in the region who spent 2 years going through a sexual assault court process. It was originally introduced in the legislature 2 years ago, but ended up being sent to a committee and never debated by MPPs. Now the bill is being reintroduced with a renewed sense of urgency and fresh frustration following the Slocum verdict.
10 days after a sexual assault acquittal that left many people reeling, the sister of one of the women involved in the Jeffrey Slocum case came to Queen's Park and read a message from her describing her experience with the court process.
I have lost years. I can never get back to the very system that claimed it would help me.
On April 24th, the former neurologist was acquitted on 48 counts of sexual assault. The complainant's female patient seen at his Kitchener clinic. A high-profile example of problems in the justice system, says Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife, and far from the only one.
In 2025 alone, 1,635 cases of sexual assault were disposed or stayed before trial, up from 1,326 in 2022. we're not going in the right direction.
Fife citing problems like court backlogs and staffing shortages.
So those are over 1,000 cases where somebody has been accused, supposed to go to court, but it gets stayed because it takes too long. And those people are just out walking free. No consequences, no accountability. They're just let off the hook.
And for cases that do go to trial, the experience is re-traumatizing.
For us, the Sloka case is an example, like in real live time, how broken the system is. If you read the verdict from the judge, it was dehumanizing, it was demeaning, and he declared the women, all 48, essentially dishonest. So this is very alarming.
Fife's private members bill, Lydia's law.
Again, 48 women. 48. And this judge dismissed them all as not reliable for whatever reason. How many would it take for this judge to have common sense? Like, I don't understand how this verdict can be allowed to stand, where some male judge can just be like, yeah, all 48 women, they're liars. When you can have another expert witness on stand who also gives testimony saying that these exams weren't necessary, but the judge also dismisses her because she's a woman. This boggles my mind how this was allowed to stand.
Is calling for transparency and accountability in the handling of sexual assault cases in Ontario, named after a Waterloo Region woman who went through her own 2-year sexual assault case. The bill calls for annual reports on intimate partner violence and sexual assault cases, including tracking delays. It would also strengthen supports for complainants and remove time limits for accessing mental health supports.
This bill is about transparency and accountability. And it's about whether survivors in Ontario can have any sort of confidence that if they come forward, the systems meant to protect them will actually show up.
In the legislature, the Attorney General defended the government's record.
No one should endure the lasting effects of these horrific crimes, but we are standing with victims. We are standing with victims by providing services. Madam Speaker, we're ensuring they have access to independent legal advice so they understand their rights, they can make informed decisions, they can navigate the system.
My sister is desperate to share what she went through in the court system so that the public can understand just how necessary Lydia's law is.
For one family grappling with the outcome of the Sloka case, they say this is an opportunity for change.
To say that we're devastated by the verdict in the Sloka case is an understatement. I think what this does in terms of the law and Lydia's law, we are not going to let this verdict tear us down. We're going to use this to propel this law forward.
And Fife is hopeful that this time the bill will be debated in the legislature.
Okay, let's see if there was anything else from this article that I wanted to get to. So the bill would prevent delays in ensuring funding is allocated to eliminating court backlogs and require every police service that receives a sexual assault complaint to make the complainant aware of the independent legal advice program delivered through Ontario Victim Services of the Ministry of the Attorney General. Okay, so it was originally, we'll get that in the reintroduction. Okay. Okay, yeah, so that was all kind of covered in the article. So here we have some more from Catherine Fife, her Twitter account. I'm going to be cutting this off a little bit early because it gets picked up in this longer clip here. So Catherine had tweeted out a summary of Lydia's law from 2024 to now. This has been a painful journey, and I did not know how broken the justice system was. In 2022, 1,326 sexual assault cases were stayed. In 2023, 1,171 sexual assault cases were stayed. Why are rapists walking free in Ontario? Doug Ford, hard on crime. He wants to lock away people who use drugs on transit and all that sort of stuff. But rapists? He didn't even hear this law out. They didn't even debate it before the last election. And Catherine has been fighting for it for years.
I move that leave be given to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Enact Lydia's Law, and it deals with the prevalence of sexual assault cases that are being dismissed or stayed or thrown out of our court system. This petition honors a young woman named Lydia who waited 2 years for justice.
This has been a painful journey, and to be honest, I did not know how broken the justice system was. In 2022, 1,326 sexual assault cases were stayed. In 2023, 1,171 sexual assault cases were stayed. Why are rapists walking free in Ontario?
There was supposed to be debate today, and then you had a number of people who were going to join at Queen's Park.
Every single time this government does a misstep or makes another mistake or another very proactive choice to silence us, we get louder.
Debate in this House is a key part of our democracy. Lydia wanted the debate to happen. She wanted to hear from the government. She wanted to hear from us. And she deserved to be heard. To the Attorney General, why are you attempting to silence voices like these and trying to prevent them from getting the justice that they deserve in this legislature, in this province?
As I table Lydia's Law today, I will be thinking of and holding in my heart the survivors of disgraced and disbarred former Dr. Sloka.
48 charges went to court. All victims were former patients. Justice Perry claimed all 48 female complainants were unreliable. Can you tell survivors why they should have any confidence in Ontario's justice system?
Okay, and then we have the fuller clip here of that exchange that Catherine Fife had. So she has been fighting for this tirelessly over the past few years, trying to get this passed, trying to bring attention to this, trying to find justice for the victims of these sexual assaults. So this is from Global News. Colin DeMello says, during question period, Attorney General accused the opposition of trolling victims. That's quite the quote. You're going to hear it in just a few minutes. The NDP was asking the AG why survivors of sexual violence, why they should have confidence in Ontario's justice system. Watch the full exchange.
Thank you very much. My question is for the Attorney General. In 2019, former Kitchener neurologist Jeffrey Sloka was stripped of his medical license after facing 76 sexual assault allegations. 48 charges went to court. All victims were former patients, ages 17 to 51. Last Friday, he was acquitted on all charges. Justice Perry claimed all 48 female complainants were unreliable. Some testimony he called deliberately dishonest. Speaker, this marks yet another sexual assault case where survivors were vilified, humiliated, and discredited. This case took 5 years to get through the court system, and no justice was found. Minister, as Sexual Assault Violence Prevention Month begins, can you tell survivors why they should have any confidence in Ontario's justice system? Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me be clear, our government and the people of Ontario have zero tolerance for sexual violence. No one should endure the lasting effects of these horrific crimes. But we are standing with victims. We are standing with victims.
This Conservative government is standing with victims
By providing services. Madam Speaker,
They actually cut back funding to services for sexual assault victims.
ensuring they have access to independent legal advice so they understand their rights, they can make informed decisions, they can navigate the system. And at the same time, we're offering trauma-informed programs to make sure that individuals that need access to justice and need supports will have them. Their victims and their families and their communities are not expected to navigate the system alone. Any suggestion that the legal support and health services are unavailable, simply not true, and telling them they are is dangerous. We will always work to ensure survivors are heard, supported, and the cases are taken seriously.
Just want to go back here.
Legal support and health services are unavailable, simply not true, and expected to navigate the system alone. Any suggestion that the legal support and health services are unavailable, simply not true, and telling them they are is dangerous.
We just had a court case where 48 women were denied justice. I think that's proof the justice system doesn't work.
We will always work to ensure survivors are heard, supported, and the cases are taken seriously and prosecuted vigorously. Madam Speaker, while the opposition is trolling victims, Madam Speaker, we are taking action, and I will speak to that in the supplementary.
So this man accuses Catherine of trolling victims. Like, that doesn't even make sense, that sentence. He was just doing that as a way to be condescending. Absolutely disgusting. Not to mention, this type of language isn't allowed on Queen's Park floor or whatever bullshit, decorum. But my God, to accuse Catherine of trolling victims because she's trying to get them justice? This guy is just an ass stain. Like, my God. Absolutely disgusting.
Back to the member for Waterloo. I cannot believe that the Attorney General just said that, Madam Speaker. A survivor disclosed the way he was looking at me wasn't right, but I pushed that down as much as I could. I'm 18 years old. What do I know? There's a big, important doctor who's telling me that this is necessary. She was called unreliable. Survivors who have the courage to come forward are met with a so-called criminal justice system that is painfully slow, hostile, re-traumatizing, and dehumanizing. To the survivors who are watching, I want them to know that we believe you. And on behalf of them, I ask the Attorney General for the Province of Ontario, do you acknowledge that this case highlights a broader systemic barriers, and will you pass Lydia's law to ensure that Ontario's justice system actually delivers justice?
This law should be like a no-brainer. Like, the conservatives who are supposedly hard on crime, all of this sort of stuff, they should want to see justice for these women. They're more than happy to lock up people and send people to jail. They want to do bail reform so it's harder to get bail, all of that sort of stuff. They should be happy about this law. They should be right on board with it. But they don't care because the victims are women.
The Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, and while we are standing up and supporting victims in several ways, the opposition has supported none of them. When we added 52 new judges to a system of 300, they voted against it. When we added 700 full-time staff, prosecutors, victim service workers, and otherwise, Madam Speaker, they voted against it. Madam Speaker, when we invested $2.3 million in independent legal advice, they voted against it. Madam Speaker, $5.6 million for children victim witness programs, they voted against it. Madam Speaker, they are resisting it every single turn, not including $98 million, Madam Speaker, to deliver 85 new gender-based violence prevention
Member for Toronto
courses,
Centre
Madam
has
Speaker.
been warned.
Not only that, but when it comes to even just talking, which is what they are doing, Madam Speaker, they rejected the tabled report from the great member from Kitchener-Hespeler. There was 1,000 pages on intimate partner violence. They turned their backs on that, Madam Speaker. We will get the job done.
They've had 8 years. 9 years? No? Almost 9 years? To get that job done. So here's another tweet from Catherine Fife about this. This week, while I demand transparency and accountability on how the Ontario's court handles sexual assault cases, the Attorney General accused me of trolling victims. Speaking up for survivors and demanding justice isn't trolling. It is needed. We will continue this fight. And I don't think we need to watch this because I think I just wanted to read that part of it, but just in case.
It's my pleasure to introduce. He accused me of victim.
No, so this is a follow-up video from like the day after when she's responding to him accusing her of trolling the victims.
It's my pleasure to introduce the new petition for Lydia's Law, which is now Bill number 112. Speaker, as you know, this legislation has been introduced in 2024. The government chose not to allow me to debate the legislation. This time, we're very hopeful that I will get the chance to bring survivor voices to the floor of this legislature. You'll know that this bill is named after Lydia, who went through a horrendous 2-year sexual assault court experience. It builds on the experience of 48 survivors of sexual assault in the Sloka case, where he was acquitted and 48 women were not believed. At the time when I asked the Attorney General about Lydia's Law and about bringing accountability and transparency to the court system in Ontario, he accused me of victim trolling.
While the opposition is trolling victims, Madam Speaker, we are taking action.
At the time, I want to let him know I was here at the behest of survivors of sexual assault who were in the public gallery, including Lydia herself, Speaker. And so I hope that the government understands that this is an important piece of legislation that needs full transparency, and I hope this time we can bring it to the floor of this legislature. Thank you.
That guy wasn't even reprimanded for saying such a grotesque thing. But this is the petition that Catherine is talking about. I'm going to toss this into the SandBox. If you're Ontario, please, go fill it out, sign the petition. So Catherine Fife will be at Queen's Park for Lydia's Law debate on May 27th, 2026. If you're in Toronto, you can go see that. And so it has a little bit more information about it that you can see here. So now we get into some more detailed information about some stats and stuff. So Catherine had tweeted out this article here saying, according to the General Social Survey, more than 560,000 Canadian women and 127,000 men reported being sexually harmed in 2019, in a 1-year span. The reports put the total economic impact of sexual violence at $14.8 billion a year. And this gets into the cost often endured by the victims. While these men are just let off the hook because, they were just, momentary lapse in judgment, or they had such a good future ahead of them, like the Brock Turner guy and all that sort of stuff. The victims of them have to pay over and over and over again for what they did to them. Often financially, often they lose their job because they have PTSD. Here in Canada, mental health isn't covered under our Canada Health Act, so depending on where you are and what program you can access, often getting counseling for it is you have to pay out of pocket. Any further precautions that you might want to take, the victim is responsible for those expenses. They have to pay for being victimized. And so this is the Waterloo Record opinion. What's the economic cost of sexual violence to society? 2 new reports put a number on it, and it's staggering. Why do rates of sexual violence remain so high and prevention so inadequate? Maybe it's because harms are visible and unqualifiable to those who don't want to see them. Or because we live in a society that understands damage only in terms of dollars. What is the cost of experiencing sexual violence? We have a good understanding of the emotional and physical toll thanks to survivors' testimony at trials, in media investigations, and in academic research. But the actual hit to the economy? That's something we rarely talk about. The emotional costs become apparent if you read or watch painful testimonies. Avery Haynes' W5 documentary, Sleeping with the Enemy, about international ring of men who drug, rape, and share footage of their partners, offers a devastating accounts from survivors. Even with their faces digitally altered, the pain of their words is undeniable. We've been living through a period of high-profile sexual assault trials in Canada, many of which end in acquittal. The accused may go free, but the complainants are often left to live with the legacy of having their trauma play out in public. So I just want to be clear here too. Just because somebody wasn't found guilty in the court of law doesn't mean they're innocent. It just means that they weren't, the case couldn't be proved without within a certain parameter or something of that sort, but it doesn't mean that they didn't do anything wrong. And there was a hockey case like that as well, where Team Canada hockey players, the accusation was they gang raped a woman who was too intoxicated to consent. They were acquitted. When, they knew, everyone knew they did something wrong. Even if they couldn't prove it beyond the reasonable doubt or whatever, it was wrong. And that doctor, what he did, even though the judge acquitted him, it was wrong. He is guilty of harming those women. The latest of these cases, the acquittal of a former neurologist, Jeffrey Sloka, in Kitchener, Ontario. Sloka faced 48 sexual assault charges related to examinations performed on patients dating back to 2010. After a trial that dragged on for more than 4 years, Sloka was acquitted on all charges. The judge found that the patients had provided unreliable evidence. All 48 women, unreliable. There was shock in the courtroom when the verdict was announced, with some women leaving in tears and others shouting shame. Giselle Petticoat, in testimony against her husband and dozens of men who raped her, famously said, "Shame has to switch sides, but that hasn't happened yet. Women and girls who experience sexual violence still experience stigma, whether they report it or not. If they do come forward, they're faced with a criminal justice system that does little to protect them, often causes further harm, and has shockingly low conviction rate. The mental health toll is devastating. Experienced sexual assault is the main trigger for post-traumatic stress disorder in women. It can bring on self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and negatively affect work and social relationships. So why do rates of sexual violence remain so high and prevention so inadequate? Maybe it's because the harms are invisible and unqualifiable to those who don't want to see them. Or because we live in a society that understands damage only in terms of dollars. There's also a sense that it's distasteful to put a number on something as intangible as violence. That's why 2 new reports attempting to qualify the financial costs of gender-based violence are so useful. The YWCA of British Columbia's report, The Cost of Inaction, found that this violence, including femicide, sexual assault, and harassment, costs the province at least $1.2 billion every year. Lost productivity from sexual and physical assault amounts to $702 million, while $307 million is spent on law enforcement, healthcare, and social services related to assault. Crucially, the report highlights that prevention is far more cost-effective than response. For example, a typical sexual assault police investigation is calculated to cost $15,000, which is 15 times what's spent on the community prevention programs. Meanwhile, another new report from Ending Sexual Violence Association of Canada looks at the cost to individuals as well as society as a whole. The economic cost of victims of sexual violence in Canada is enlightening and depressing in equal measure. First, because it reveals the scope of the problem. According to the General Social Survey, Victimization, more than 560,000 Canadian women and 127,000 men reported being sexually harmed in 2019. And second, because the consequences of those harms are so far-ranging, the report puts the total economic impact of sexual violence at $14.8 billion a year. It's only when that damage is laid out in black and white with numbers attached that you begin to see what the cost entails. There are actual physical outlays, everything from changing locks to buying security dogs, added to the out-of-pocket medical and mental health costs that many survivors face. On top of that, there's the price of lost productivity and the incalculable cost of lost lives. As the BCYWCA noted, gender-based violence is an economic drain with ripple effects beyond individual survivors. We shouldn't have to put a price tag on suffering, but it may be the only way to understand how damage accumulates year after year and to take action to end it. So Elizabeth Renzete is a Toronto-based contributing columnist for the Toronto Star, and what she said, conversation about equality. So this link looks like it's going to be too long for me to put into the SandBox. Let me see. Oh, it is just 4 characters too long. So what I'm going to do is, if you're on the Hostile Fart Sauna, I'll put the link to Catherine's tweet, and then there's the link to the article there if you want to read over it yourself. And also I came across this article where, again, it's the idea that women have equality in this society, that somehow we're now on par with men, so far from the truth. So women serve longer prison sentences after killing abusers. When men kill the woman they're abusing, statistics say they get out sooner. In 2017, a North Carolina man convicted of stabbing his pregnant wife to death in their bedroom was released from prison after only 7 years. Last May, a New Jersey man was sentenced to 15 years for the June 2017 murder of his wife, who died of blunt force trauma and was found floating in the couple's backyard pool. Her online search history shows she was planning on leaving her husband. In Nebraska, a man who was found guilty of severing his wife's head has been allowed to re-enter the community with supervision after spending only 5 years in a psychiatric hospital. Meanwhile, women like Marissa Alexander are sentenced to 20 years for firing a warning shot into the wall near where her abusive husband stood minutes after he had wrapped his hands around her neck to strangle her. Men are murdering these women and they get out sooner. A woman fires a warning shot, not even injuring him, gets 20 years. Kim Dadu received 17 years for fatally shooting her boyfriend after he climbed on top of her in his car and threatened to kill her. This was also after she endured 4 years of his abuse. Crystal Potter, interviewed recently for This Is Life with Lisa Ling, in an episode called Women Who Kill, served 20 years in prison for shooting her husband after he got out a gun and aimed it at her head. Again, this was following Potter living through his weekly beatings. If you try to defend yourself against your abuser, you get locked away for decades. Yet so many stories of people, there's the stories of white people shooting, a black kid through the door because he went to knock for directions, not getting charged. People for self-defense and all this sort of stuff. But the instant a woman who's in abusive relationships tries to stand up for herself, tries to defend herself, she's locked away for decades. According to statistics compiled by the ACLU, women who kill their partners will spend an average of 15 years behind bars, while men who kill their female partners serve much shorter sentences on average, between 2 to 6 years. While most would agree homicide dictates a sizable prison stint, the question is why? Why are women being punished so much more harshly, especially when you consider this statistic? At least 90% of women in prison for killing men report having been abused by those men. That's not even murder, that's self-defense. They're being sent to prison for self-defense. This isn't premeditated. You know, if somebody is attacking you on the streets and you kill them in self-defense, generally speaking, you're not charged. Even here in Canada, you're not charged. But if the person you're defending yourself against is your abusive partner, suddenly decades behind prison. After Potter got married, her husband isolated them in a rural home in California. Potter wasn't allowed to leave, not even to walk down their driveway to the mailbox. She had to retire from her job as a police officer with the Air Force, and her husband began beating on her on a weekly basis. Just months into their marriage, he was becoming delusional, Potter attests. He began building an arsenal of weapons, convinced the apocalypse was coming. He bought large dogs and trained them to kill. Potter was scared. One afternoon, Potter took a ride on her horse that they kept at their home, the home she wasn't supposed to leave. When she returned some time later, her husband told her, "I'm going to kill that horse." They began to argue. Crystal said her husband grabbed her by the hair and began punching her before dragging her back to the house. He took out a gun and Crystal found herself staring down its barrel. Crystal thought she was about to die. She grabbed a gun from a nearby table and shot her husband 9 times. "For some reason, I just kept firing," she tells Ling. The jury determined Crystal used excessive force and sentenced her to 22 years, even with a claim of self-defense. The brutal beatings Potter's husband inflicted on her for months prior likely weren't admissible as evidence. As attorney Sonny Schwartz, interviewed by Ling, says, up until recently, battered women's abuse was not allowed into evidence. There are hundreds of women inside prison who only defended themselves, who are rotting for decades. Even today, Potter would face an uphill battle claiming the abuse when she hadn't disclosed it to anyone prior. Ling asked Potter, "The only other person who really knows what happens is dead now. Why should people believe you?" Potter replies, "People need to educate themselves and understand domestic violence. It takes a lot. When a woman finally does raise a hand, we don't just kill for nothing. Women aren't supposed to kill. We are desensitized to men killing," says Nora V. Demlenter, a professor of law at Washington and Lee University School of Law in Virginia, who specializes in criminal justice and sentencing issues. According to her, gender disparity is prevalent throughout the justice system. That's just one of the reasons women receive harsher sentences for murder. Women aren't supposed to be violent. The data indicates that they rarely are compared to men. Women are supposed to reconcile, seek out others for help, mediate. The more violent the killing may be, the more do women defy the stereotype, setting them up for a high sentence. Yeah, it's almost like men just get off the hook so often because it's just in their nature. It's just men being men, boys being boys, the violence that they inflict. So, you know, what are you going to do? Lock them all away for decades and decades and decades? Yeah, actually. And if a woman is defending herself against an abusive partner, how about she doesn't get locked away at all? And instead she gets counseling and supportive housing and anything else she needs to get back into society. So the second reason, victim blaming. Even though women are usually considered less of a threat than male criminals overall and receive lower sentences than men for nonviolent crimes like fraud and burglary, the statistics show women are less likely to become repeat offenders. When it comes to domestic violence, an outdated mindset still prevails. She must have done something nary this type of response. She says, in other words, Potter is at fault for not only the murder, but the abuse that preceded it. She backs up Potter's statement about being pushed to homicide. Women who are abused and resort to killing aren't just the victims of the abuser, but also exemplify failure of state protection. She says heavy sentences for women after they kill an abusive partner may actually be the manifestation of our own frustration to protect survivors and society's inability to address the problem of domestic violence. The third reason women may face longer time behind bars, social context. She says, the less the judge can identify with her, the more condemnatory the sentence may be. More than 2/3 of state court judges are male, while the overwhelming majority of victims of domestic violence are female. What about self-defense? When women kill an abuser, the narrative doesn't fit as neatly into self-defense paradigm we often think of, she says, which demands immediate threat. If a woman is attacked on the street by a masked man and she shoots and kills them, it's clearly self-defense. But what about a woman whose abusive husband threatens to kill her if she tries to leave, or she tells anyone about the abuse? What if he shows her the knife or the gun or the grave he's dug for her? What if he tells her she'll never be free? In battered spouses, danger has been building up over time. It's very difficult to explain that to a jury. And let's not forget, a survivor's appearance in court often doesn't reflect what we expect women at the end of their rope to look like. She says, often the victim appears cold-blooded and intentional. That appearance reflects the trauma the victim has suffered, rather than the same mental state a more pragmatic, intentional killers may have. More experts' education's needed. Ideally, cases like Potter's would have a psychologist or a psychiatrist take the stand to talk about the mental effects of abuse and trauma, the psychological torture of domestic violence. She says, unfortunately, they're rarely affordable in these types of cases. The other response is let's not worry about the jury, let's educate the judges so this doesn't lead to a lengthy prison sentence, she says. Some attorney advocates are trying to do just that, with a recently revised manual specifically aimed at judges and lawyers called Representing the Domestic Violence Survivor. Meanwhile, some states are trying to give judges more leniency power to survivors. In New York, the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act, signed into law last May, would allow judges to grant a shorter sentence to women who have been abused. However, in its first eligible case, a manslaughter trial in Buffalo, the defendant, Taylor Partlow, was given 8 years for stabbing her abusive boyfriend. The judge ruled the abuse she endured was not substantial enough to take into account. Do we need any guesses as to whether that judge was a man? So learn more about the disparity in criminal justice system and how one attorney is fighting for change. Is the system failing survivors? So I'm going to toss this link into the SandBox for people who might be interested in this as well. Okay, so next up we have some videos that are still about a very dark subject, but are a bit lighter in nature. The first few videos I'm not worried about showing. I don't think they'll get my channel a hit, but the last video I'm nervous about. But before we get to those, I'm going to check the SandBox. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. I know this is a very heavy subject, but you know, it's the whole get informed, get involved. We need to know where we're at with this in society. People need to be made aware of the uphill battle when it comes to justice for victims of sexual violence, who's advocating for justice, like Catherine Fife, what we can do to help her in her fight for justice, what we can do as individuals to inform ourselves, what to expect, everything. It's important that we talk about this. Let's see. So I saw those. Jet saying this judge should be disbarred, the one who acquitted the Jeffrey Sloka. I think so, yeah. If I was the judge of that judge. Hello, Synonymous. Welcome to the SandBox. People of every religion rape. Buddhists are not necessarily better. If you look at the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, it was Buddhists who did that genocide. Religion is often used as a cloak, regardless of the religion. That's why I don't believe in religious institutions. If you want to follow religion, that's fine, but religious institutions, I find they are all dangerous. Some of the most dangerous institutions in the world. But yeah, tens of thousands of Rohingya Muslims were slaughtered, brutally slaughtered in Myanmar at the hands of Buddhists. So no religion is free from violent behaviors. Jet saying horrible men get the most absurd protections. Yeah, I didn't really cover the case of the Team Canada hockey players that were acquitted of the gang rape. I did cover it at one point after all the trial and stuff, just I think at the final verdict, but again, it's just another stark example of it doesn't seem to matter. And in that case, the judge was a woman who said that the victim wasn't reliable in her testimony. She just, yeah, I get the feeling that she's not quite right. That justice relies on whether a judge deems a person to be worthy of their belief, you know, worthy of humanity. The thing is that judges have their own biases and baggage that they bring into the courtroom. Super Strike 9 saying systems shattered if that many victims are not believed. 48? Mm-hmm. Let's see. Super Strike 9 saying BC dropped the ball massively with the Picton case. Yep. Serial killer killing primarily sex workers and feeding their remains to pigs. Again, they look at who the victims are and make judgments about them and how they got into those positions and how worthy are they of, you know, justice. Because some people don't deserve justice the same as other people, apparently, according to these judges. Hello, Diamond Weight Loss. Welcome to the SandBox. It's been a while. Yeah, that was an American paper reference frame that I switched to, but I'm sure it's very similar to what happens here in Canada. Super Strike 9 saying, when your life is in danger, time for reconciliation is over. Rusty saying, restorative justice may help in SA. I am an advocate for restorative justice, even in some very bad cases. I believe that because the goal should be to make sure that they don't do it again. Ideally, it'd be great to get to people before they even commit these acts, you know, set society up in a way where people don't lash out like that. But, you know, just sending them to prison where they will also get abused and damaged and traumatized, that doesn't prevent him from recidivism. You know, that doesn't prevent him from doing it again, and in some cases might make them more likely to do it again. So the goal should be to make sure that they never do it again. And quite often, restorative justice is one of those routes that people can take that can help in those situations. Okay, so hopefully these videos that we're about to watch don't get me in trouble. See, did I want to read this first? No, I think that's in the right order. Okay, so here we have a clip of a comedian. And the person tweeting out is like, yeah, pretty much. Oh, and they're quote tweeting this. So somebody posted saying, so just so we're clear, you want me to be afraid of trans women in women's bathrooms because they might be cis men pretending so they can assault women and children. And you think this reflects on trans women and not cis men? Do I have that correct? And this comedian kind of having a bit about that sort of thing.
Like, a lot of people now think if you let transgender women into women's bathrooms, it'll be like a loophole for predators, you know? And you're allowed to think that. But I will say, if you do think that, that does mean you believe there are guys out there going, man, I'd really love to go into a woman's bathroom and abduct and murder someone. But unfortunately, I'm just not allowed in there.
Yep. And plenty of people have been saying it all the time. All these bathroom bills against trans women, which is just punishing trans women for the aggression of cis men. There ain't no cis men out there that are thinking to themselves, wow, yeah, I'd like to harm this person, but they're in the women's washroom. There's no magical barrier that prevents cis men from getting in to cause harm. And most of that harm happens in the home by people you know. Those bathrooms aren't segregated. Like, it's just the idea that the only thing preventing men from inflicting harm on women is the washroom that woman is in is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That's the only barrier to their crime, is that they can't somehow get into the woman's washroom. Like, it is such a load of bullshit, all this fear-mongering about trans women and punishing trans women for the aggression of cis men. This next video, again, just really paints a picture of, like, what stopped Donald Trump from entering women's locker rooms? You know, the fact that it was a women's locker room didn't stop him. So how are putting all these bathroom bills in place for trans women stopping people like Donald Trump? How would that have prevented Donald Trump from doing what he did? And so somebody's Mega Cult Slayer just saying, Mega, can you see how ridiculous you sound, or can't because you are in the middle of it? Serious question.
I don't think any men should be in any women's restrooms, dressing rooms, or any women's sports.
Okay. What do you think should happen to a man that intentionally walked into a private woman's dressing room to look at them while they're naked?
I think they should be arrested.
If Trump was held accountable for the crimes that he did way back when, he would have never been president. Just never would have happened.
They should be arrested. I would argue that they should be thrown in jail for the rest of their life. I just don't really think that they're too beneficial to society.
I agree.
Are you a Trump supporter?
I am.
Here's a clip of Donald Trump boasting about walking into a private woman's dressing room to look at the naked people inside.
We say hello.
They were also underage. Just saying.
Let's go again.
What you could also say is the owner of.
Well, and everybody plays stuff and they can make it seem like it's something different.
Listen to it.
I'll tell you the funniest thing. It's not AI.
Because it came out in 2005.
Everyone knows this came out a long time ago. This to try to be like, oh no, this is AI. Trump would never do anything like that. Mm-mm.
Well, that was 20 years ago. People change all the time. That was 20 years ago.
But now you're saying...
We got to go to dinner right now.
But you're saying...
Yeah, so they should go to prison forever. Oh, but he did it 20 years ago, so he should be let off the hook. He wasn't punished back then, so what's the point in punishing him now for something he did 20 years ago?
That because it happened 20 years ago, you're okay with him, but you just said if it was anybody but Trump, they should be thrown in jail for the rest of their life.
Anybody but Trump.
Okay.
But they shouldn't be.
But do you still support Trump?
He's never, I still do.
Okay, do you want to listen to him admitting to it, or do you got to go?
I don't, oh, I gotta get this phone.
Okay, all right.
I gotta get this phone call suddenly. It rang while I pulled it out of my pocket and looked at it. It just rang and I had to get to it. So here's a tweet from somebody just really, again, painting the picture of what women are going through. And this is, again, post Me Too. Me Too just, it feels like it was just a trend, a momentary trend, but nothing in society actually changed. Nothing, women are still confronted with the same reality we were before. So Kay here says, woman, I want to go for a run. Society, you can't go alone. You'll get raped. Woman, I want to walk to my car in the parking garage. Society, alone? You better get someone to escort you or you'll get raped. Women, I want to live alone. Society, you need a gun, alarm, a dog, and probably a gun for the dog too. Women, what about going to the park? Society, dangerous. Women, okay, I'll just go out for a drink then. Society, don't take your eyes off your drink. Watch out for predators spiking your drinks. Stay alert at all times. Woman, I was raped. Society, are you sure? That just seems impossible. Yeah, feel that one. We all know the reality. Men know the reality too. Yet, as soon as that reality plays out, suddenly, yeah, maybe, no, mm-mm. So the last video I have for you, it's a really important video, but again, I'm worried because Trevor Noah's YouTube channel is sponsored by Spotify. But this is really, really important. So this is the woman here that he's talking to. I'm going to speed up the video. And let's see, I should have a kitty cover here. Yeah, so we're going to watch Frodo. So this is the woman here that is talking, but I'm going to cover it. And actually, I can just take it off screen and play the audio. I don't even need to cover it. And I'll speed it up a bit. So I'll go to main screen here. Make this big, change the setting. So like I said, I'm speeding this up to 1.25 and you're not seeing it on screen, but you should be hearing the audio because again, I'm just concerned with this one getting mad at me, YouTube getting mad at me for showing this. So if you're watching this in the future and you don't see this clip, I had to snip it out. And you can go to Trevor Noah's channel on YouTube to go watch it. It was done fairly recently. I should probably find the link and I could put the link to the full conversation he had with this woman. I haven't watched the full conversation he had with this one yet, but I do plan on it. I think it's a very important conversation. So here, I'll play it now.
Who would you rather be in a forest with, a man or a bear?
You can throw food at a bear. You gotta throw pussy at a man.
Just give me a thumbs up that you can hear that okay. Reference frame still wants the photo picture. So I'll start this over again. Just start yelling at me if you can't hear it.
Who would you rather be in a forest with, a man or a bear?
You can throw food at a bear. You gotta throw pussy at a man.
Just in case that went by too fast, she said, you can throw food at a bear. You have to throw pussy at a man.
You didn't answer the question.
A bear.
A bear?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because I know because the thing is, it's like a bear is not inherently dangerous. Unless it's hungry.
Okay, so let me ask you a question here. I'm glad you're here, Dulce. You're the only person I'll probably ask this to, because you'll be honest. Could it be that men struggle with hearing that answer because as men, we don't see ourselves as a monolith?
No, men struggle with seeing that answer because men don't want to think they're the bad guy. So here's the thing. Women are told to take self-defense classes.
Yes.
Don't dress provocatively.
Yes.
Don't be a whore.
Okay.
Carry a knife, carry pepper spray, carry all of these things. So you're telling me to do all of these things to make sure that I'm not assaulted or attacked.
Right.
But then if I get assaulted or attacked, you don't believe me. But you told me to do all of these things. And so if I'm being attacked, somebody's doing it. But we're never talking about we're not telling the attackers not to attack. We're telling the victim don't get attacked. So every man that heard that was just like, well, I would never. But every woman you know has either been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. So we're not doing it to each other. So how is it that no man has done it, but it has happened to every woman? So when men hear that, it's, well, I wouldn't do that. Because I was talking to Kabuka about this one time.
Right.
And Kabuka was like, he's like, it's crazy. He said, you don't think that your friend, he said, your friend is talking to all the women, come to find out, he's raping everybody nobody knew.
That was a good impression of Kabuka.
Thank you. He's like, he's doing the thing. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the thing.
He's doing the thing.
Doing the thing.
And you don't know he's doing the thing. He's at the bar, he's talking to the ladies. You don't know, he's raping everybody. Like, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, no man wants to think their friend is like that. No man there's men that have assaulted people. It's like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. So if you as a man think that a woman would rather be with a wild animal in the forest than you, because here's my thing. I think all the men that got upset by that, there's always a saying that I would hear growing up, a kicked dog will holler. If I didn't kick you, you're fine. But if you felt like you got kicked, then you are somebody who has been harassing and terrorizing women. Point blank.
And that is it for the clip, but I think it's a really good clip. And I'm going to be watching the whole thing. Let me just see if I can find it quickly, actually. Actually,
who would you rather be in a forest with?
Don't autoplay. Let's go over some of the comments. There we go. I'm just kind of curious. So somebody's saying women have to treat every man as potential rapist for the same reason you teach children to treat every stranger as potential kidnapper. It really isn't hard to understand. There should be a reality show where women gets dropped in a desolate woods. Nah, I don't like that comment. Yeah. Again, a lot of men angry at what she said. Oh, well, if a bear were to enter that room. Okay, you're not talking about being in the middle of the woods. Somebody's saying, I think it boils down to knowing the worst thing a bear is going to do is kill you. Okay, I'll see if I can find the video, the full video. Because it wasn't too long ago that this conversation happened. Let's see. Oh, no, not that. Was it a live stream? I'm not finding the full video. Huh, that's unfortunate. I was hoping to watch the full video of that conversation. It might be one of those things where it gets posted later after a certain period of time. Or it could be from like an older podcast. Oh, there it is. Okay. It's from 2 months ago. So this is a link to the podcast of that full conversation on YouTube. And I will be watching that later. Don't you stop with the autoplay. There we go. Okay, so no, the whole Bear v. Man in the Woods thing happened a long time ago. Somebody else started it. Rusty. Go and check the SandBox. Let's see. The Wild West saying impeachment. Scylla saying the cultists aren't trying to hear it. Yeah. Rusty, we're not doing it to each other. 100%. Yeah. Hello, Atticus Among Us. Scylla's, that's a phrase to live by, specifically the hit dog will holler phrase. Yeah. Hello, Commie Economist. Welcome to the SandBox. Is Tarnage Badge still active? I don't know what that is. It's about believing women police officers accusing other officers of SA and being thrown under the bus by their unions. Not sure what that's all about. Hello, Matthew. Welcome, or Matt. Welcome to the SandBox. We're just about to wrap up. Yeah, it was just going to be a shorter live stream today because I just wanted to cover that one subject, separate from my regular news live stream. Also, it's a bit of a heavier subject, talking about sexual assault and whatnot, and I was worried that that last video I showed might get my channel in trouble, so if you're watching the live stream later on and you don't hear any of it, I had to cut it out. But yeah, I don't have anything else that I was planning on going over today. So Wednesday, I'll be on this space, so you can check me out there. I'm just going to be working on painting and my TYT essay. The painting's the priority right now just because there's a deadline. So I think with all of that, I might just wrap it up. I'm a little bit pooped. Been busy. Been super busy the last little while. So, yeah. Don't forget, check me out on all of these. I can't wait to get back to my book. One of these days, I'm just going to have a live stream where it's like spoilers only and just talk about the book and the prequels and sequels and the world and everything I've planned and the different stories and the spoilers and all that sort of stuff. So it'd be like a spoilers only live stream of my book. One of these days, because I love talking about it. Sometimes And when I'm out at a social event, somebody will make the mistake of asking me about it, and I'm like, I actually warned them now. It's like, you realize if you open this door, I won't shut up for the next 40 minutes. The book, it's not a terribly long novel. It's 267 pages or so. That's including the notes at the end. Yep. Okay, so yeah, I think I want to get dinner. Yeah, next news live stream will be on Sunday. Who knows what I'll be covering then? But please continue to promote me to other leftist channels. Hopefully I can get on. Still looking to be on a channel that's larger than mine. That would be nice to do a collaboration like that. I've also reached out to Mark Allen Derry to see if he'll come back on my show to talk about infectious disease stuff, because there's the hantavirus going on. It'd be nice to get his take on it. I don't have an audio version, Rusty, at this point. I plan to, once everything settles down and I get the TYT video essay done and out there, and I can focus more on my book again, I'm going to do a video reading of all of the chapters, and that will be behind a paywall on my YouTube and Patreon. But what I'm also going to do is let you know when the entire book is out, and then you can just sign up for 1 month and read it, listen to it that way. Or if somebody is really, really hard up for money, just, let me know. Because I don't want to, I don't want to put up paywalls for any of my content, but I have to balance it out somehow. I'd still like to be paid for my work, So I think with all of that, I'll do the thing. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you everyone who has supported my content. Super appreciate it. Thank you to the mods. Oh, fuck. Should see if we're going to rate anyone first. Let me do this. I go to edit. See if there's anyone to redirect to that's live right now that I am familiar with. Let's see. Do you know what? My left eye is live right now. He's rated me a bunch of times, so we're going to raid him. So be prepared to go to my left eye. So, with all of that, salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.